Hello, this is Ray's Musical Reviews, and we brought to you by...
The Gin Project.
No, Go Home Heat? Oh, no, this is where we introduce ourselves.
Oh, yeah.
I'm Green Day Jared.
Green Day Jared.
Wow.
That includes the question mark.
I'm Kevin. KP.
Yes.
Do I have a thing?
Arcade Fire KP.
Nice. Yes.
It could be way worse.
Yes, absolutely.
And just call me Ray. We are doing another one of Blank's favorites. Today we are doing one of my favorites. Arguably my favorite metal album ever, System of a Down's Toxicity. And
they don't suck.
Before we get into
we should, I think, lay down as a foundation that System of a Down does not suck, despite what we've said on previous podcasts.
Because that was all a joke directed at Michael Moore.
We were doing a bit.
Not that Michael Moore.
Not
a person I actually know.
Not the director.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, it could also be a joke at the director's expense. I don't know what his...
I don't know his status on System of the Down.
Yeah. 2001 album, though.
Yes, 2001. System of a Down are an Armenian nu metal act made up of Serj Tankian, guitarist and side vocalist Darren McLean, bassist Shavo, and drummer John. I'm not even going to try to pronounce their last names.
Dude, Serj Tankian is the dopest name imaginable. If I was born with that name, he was predestined to be in a metal band.
To call them
greatness.
And greatness.
To call them nu metal is almost disrespectful to what they did.
It's like way better.
Yeah.
Well, they
and
that
to
genre.
tell you what and how important they were to metal. I need to tell you what nu metal is and the decrepit state of metal at this time and place.
Yeah, because when I think of nu metal, I definitely don't think of System of a Down.
Right.
No, when you think of the good bands that came out of this genre of metal, System of a Down, Deftones, Tool,
they're
they're not nu metal.
No.
They're tangentially, like, maybe, but they're not.
Like, I almost put, especially this album, like, I don't want to say, like, almost thrash adjacent. Way more than... parts of it anyways, but it's just not
There's
metal.
no hip-hop in here.
Yeah.
There's no bad rapping.
There's the back and forth between singing and screaming, but...
There is one track on there where he kind of does some form of a hip-hop thing.
Are you talking about Shimmy?
Yeah.
Okay.
There are tracks that do kind of flow into jazz a little too.
Yeah. I agree with that, especially the shimmy part.
And I will, I'll just say, nu metal is widely regarded as the worst state metal was ever in. Some even put it worse than hair metal, which,
At least the outfits were cool in hair metal.
They just wore weird dreads in nu metal. That just didn't work. And it was a very weird time because it pushed many people away from the genre entirely. And System of a Down, along with many acts like, of course, Deftones, Tool, maybe even Linkin Park, kind of kept metal afloat into the mid-2000s. And I feel like this album, in my personal opinion, is their best. It is, again, it's a diamond in the rough, to say it in the right word. So yes, this album helped keep metal alive. It was also certified triple platinum in the US, and it has many messages and themes that have pretty much only gotten better with age.
Yeah, a lot of what they were talking about is only more relevant in today's
But is
landscape.
it good?
But is it good?
In my humble opinion, the short answer is yes. But I'm going to get into the long answer.
That's what this podcast is.
It starts off with Prison System, which kind of... It is unique. It's its own song. It introduces a lot of the elements that would be furthered within the album.
I love this song. I think Prison Song is one of my favorite ones on the album. I think the varied speed and tone of it is so perfect. And so it like makes all the messages of the songs more impactful. I love it.
And then the song afterwards, Needles, is kind of interesting because it's more of a metaphor. It's talking about this parasite that's controlling their mind. The parasite might be symbolism for the government, yada, yada, yada. But then the bridge hits, and Darren talks about sitting in his room, Neil his hand. But that could also lead into what they were talking about in Prison Song, where they were talking about how the government were promoting drugs.
Oh yeah, like a lot of the themes they present, especially with like drugs in the prison system, were from like legit experience. I forget which one of the members, but one of them like went to prison for a while because of drugs. So yeah, they start off with prison system, then they go into Needles, which is like heroin, but it still relates to the same theme.
The parasite could also be a symbolization for addiction and how that controls your mind and how it's layered.
Tapeworms. I've never heard a song where the chorus was pull the tapeworm out of your ass, and I'm just like thrashing the whole time. You know what I mean? Like I'm so into it. I'm like, this is the most ridiculous, but at the same time, yes.
Absolutely.
It's vicious imagery.
Right. Oh. Whoa. Right.
Moving on to a much less goofy song, Deer Dance. It's really aged in reverse. It does talk about police brutality. And that imagery basically says into what the chorus says, pushing little children with their fully automatics. This song has really like aged in reverse, hasn't it?
Again, because I mean, so many of the problems they were talking about 20 years ago were still problems then, but they've been more observed by the public eye, if that makes sense.
Well, I mean, now you're able to. Now it's not just getting it on the news at 6.
Yeah.
Now
it's on Twitter.
It's hitting you.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Go ahead.
And that bridge is absolutely gorgeous. I just don't. This Deer Dance leaves me speechless. We will not move on. I will not talk about Jet Pilot yet. I will talk about it later on in a point I have to make. But now we're moving on to Multiply. I don't know if I've ever heard a band better make the noise of a bomb going off than in Multiply.
So loud and explosive.
And God, good Lord.
I don't entirely understand what the song is about. I think, the people on Genius seem to think it was about something that I don't think it's about. The people on Genius seem to think that it's a song about immigration, overpopulation, and the Armenian genocide. The Armenian genocide being a theme throughout their songs, I do think that one's valid, totally valid. But I don't exactly see what part of this is about immigration. To tell the people that arrive that we don't need to multiply and all that, it's kind of just odd. Well, I saw it more as like an overpopulation thing for like, because again, like this album has many political themes: police brutality, drug wars, like the environment. I was trying to think of the word ecology, but the environment being one of them. I think that's what this song's about. We don't need to further strain the resources this world has to offer.
Absolutely. And after that is the classic Chop Suey. I've heard this song approximately 100 million times.
It's like almost meme status, but it's still phenomenal. Like it's not a song that's been so far removed from its context that it's just a joke, but it's still phenomenal. Start to finish.
It also kind of ventures into a more introspective side of this album.
Yes.
Which I think is needed because while I am very much into the political aspects and all of that, I do think it does need to have something just a little bit deeper. And this song, which eventually sprouts into songs like Forest, ATWA, which stands for Air,
Trees, Water, Animal, which was the name of the group that Charles Manson
Yeah, and
formed.
I was about to say Chop Suey ventures off into Forest, ATWA, and another song that I can't quite remember at this point, but it does eventually lead, like Forest is a more kind of religious turn. Science is the song I was about to name. Specifically ATWA and Science, how they're basically kind of love letters to Mother Nature before we eventually destroy it, and how we kind of have a little. And
Yes.
I do think when Darren wrote ATWA and he took influence from what Charles Manson had said, I think he kind of may separate what he said and the things that he did.
Yeah, because Charles Manson,
Not a good guy.
not a good guy.
But in Forest, it kind of adds this religious imagery.
I love Forest. Forest is like probably my second favorite track on the whole album.
It adds in this
It's gorgeous.
religious imagery, and again, it makes this album deeper, just a little more haunting. And I feel like that's kind of what nu metal didn't have. It was also shallow. Except for those bands that I cherry-picked out.
As a whole,
As a whole, it was so just shallow.
it was music for people who punch holes in drywall when their mom doesn't buy them Monster.
Yeah, it was for people who are too angry to be like nerds. For white people who are too angry to be nerds, but too nerdy to be jocks. It's weird.
Like I don't want to completely like dismiss it, but that is the issue I have with a lot of the stuff that came out during that period.
I don't think that's entirely fair
No.
to the genre, but I don't know that. I mean, you're talking about a generation of people who were raised that liked hip hop and metal, and so they came up with something that included both.
But barely
genres.
any of it. But the
Yeah,
hip
but
hop
that
part was
included both
bad.
genres, but also was like way worse than both individual
Like,
genres.
what was the line? Hold on. Put your from Limp Bizkit's rolling. Now put your
Okay.
hand in the air
Okay.
because we don't care. And
I will
Like,
say that you cherry picking Limp Bizkit is equally
they
unfair.
sold Diamond.
They
sold Diamond.
You're valid. That's
That's
correct.
probably. I think Starfish in the Hot Dog Flavor Water is probably one of the best-selling metal albums, if not the best-selling metal album of all time.
Probably the worst popular album title ever. I can't think of one that I like less. And Hot Dog Flavored Water. Oh.
And again, with moving back into this album, it adds like Shimmy, which is a super blunt song, but I feel like it needs to be blunt because the rest of the album is so obscure. It adds more things. It's so much, and it all works. And another thing that kind of surprises me about the album is a song like Aerials, which the people in System of a Down have admitted means nothing. It still feels like something, and it feels like this entire album earned Aerials. It doesn't feel like it's not just another closer.
No,
this
I
album-
very much agree.
This album scratched and clawed to earn that closer. And I think it's just Aerials is a front to back. I know calling music perfect is a little cliche, but everything works.
No, I mean it's my favorite song on the album, so I absolutely agree. For me, I just can't get over how wonderful the opening lines are for the Life is a Waterfall. We're one in the river and one again after the fall. I think that's like a running theme throughout this album, especially with songs like Forest and Science, where like their view on the spiritual nature of humans is that we're born out of something. We are separate. We're born out of the energy of the universe, and we separate ourselves on the fall, which is life. And then after we die, we are one again which I think that's like gorgeous. You know what I mean?
And then when you get into Arto, which is technically the closer, it's more of an instrumental thing. It's like Armenian chants, but it almost feels like it's telling people to accept their culture, right? Because after all of this, they still embrace their Armenian selves. And I can't believe I just skipped over Psycho.
Yeah, Psycho.
That was...
I believe you skipped over Toxicity.
Yes.
Yeah, I skipped over those two songs, which are some of my favorites. Psycho is just... It's really hypnotizing, especially by the end, how it kind of flows from being so abrasive and thrashing to hypnotizing. And Toxicity, of course, classic. My favorite part of Toxicity is probably the line, how do you own the world, how do you own disorder? Because, again, like, the entire theme of the album is disorder. And I feel like it just kind of hooks in everything. And one thing I wanted to say about Jet Pilot is the fact that it's crazy how within this album, it's 15 songs, there's no filler. There's no, at least that I can see. The only thing you could maybe say is...
Bounce.
Okay. The only thing you could maybe say is Bounce in Jet Pilot. And I think Bounce is good because it shows that the band don't take themselves too seriously, which again was a problem with a lot of nu metal. And I think Jet Pilot is good mainly because it's just so moshy. Is that a word?
Yeah, I actually...
It's a verb.
Yes. It makes me want to get in the pit.
And try to love someone?
No.
Are you sure?
No. So I'm swinging. I'm opening this pit up.
That's from legendary nu metal act Kid Rock.
Oh, I realized you couldn't see the face I made. But imagine me pulling back in horror and disgust at having to hear Kid Rock's name.
Get in the pit and try to love someone. Bow with a bow. Da bang, da bang. Taking yourself too seriously is what we're doing here.
Dude, you don't think Kid Rock said that with 100% seriousness in his voice?
I actually have seen him say that, and he gets fired up about it.
How many Kid Rock concerts have you been to?
This is funny, I saw Stained,
Okay.
Kid Rock,
Okay.
and Limp Bizkit together at this Mississippi Gulf Coast.
That was the peak in your life. Everything has been downhill.
I wouldn't say that, but
how much money was that?
It was a heck of a good time.
Fair enough.
That dude that plays for Limp Bizkit is a phenomenal guitarist.
The guitarist? Yeah.
And their DJ is really good too.
Yeah, as much as you can dunk on these bands and people, like the live performances, if they're full of energy, they're still fun.
Well,
That's
That's the thing.
I've seen like different bands in the genre you're talking about, like Papa Roach. They aren't great, but if you're standing in front of them, it's a lot. It's fun. People are jumping up and down. Same with Kid Rock. Stained was a phenomenal band. Actually, they wound up kind of falling in love with what they did a little bit. But anyway, let's get back to something more important, like this record.
Yeah. But when you... I just don't feel like with other bands and how they handled stuff, they rapped a lot of crap, but they never had anything to say. System of a Down, Deftones, Tool, they have stuff to say, at least, you know? And
I agree. I feel like most of the songs are both fun, energetic, angry, but also in the form of righteous anger, a form of anger that has both form and direction. Because I feel like that's the problem I have with a lot of the bands from this period, where I listen to them and it's like the anger comes through, but it's kind of directionless anger. It's like they may be talking about societal issues, but they don't make any point to ascribe a solution or a cause or anything like that. It is, for me, formless.
Also, this album could not have any singing on it at all, and it would be phenomenal.
Yes.
These guys are really good players,
dude. And
some of the breakdowns.
Yeah.
Bridges and things like that.
Yeah, breakdowns and bridges. Some of them are just amazing.
Can we also
Right.
talk about this? Here we're about to get into the questions. But I'm just gonna say this: the drummer is a. I do not like the drummer as a person. But
But god dang.
dear God, the drumming on this album is top tier.
There's
There's a
incredible.
reason by a group of guys that believe differently than him overlook his beliefs in order to stay in the Maybe because he's phenomenal.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, no, the playing, the screaming, the singing, every part of this album is like top tier. And any problems I could possibly have with this album, none of them.
Right. The only thing I could see, like you say, well, I really don't. Either I could see where if it's too much for you, I get that. Or if, like we've said before about a couple of different singers, if what comes out of his mouth is phenomenal, but if it grates your nerves, I could totally get that and see where you were out, because he is a huge part of what this is, and he is an emotion. You know what I mean? And the way he projects himself invokes awkwardness and you know what I mean? Like everything he does, the whole he's amazing performer.
We're just gonna get in the questions. They're not gonna be a long suit of questions. We're basically just gonna say good, bad. How do you feel about the prison song opener?
Awesome.
Great. I think it phenomenal. It gets me right in the mood.
Closer, aerials, and Arto.
Awesome.
Phenomenal. Again, Aerials is probably my favorite song.
Favorite, least favorite. You were gonna say aerials is favorite and bounce is least favorite.
I do want to briefly complain about Bounce. For me, it's not so much that, like, again, like what you were saying, it is kind of a breath of like silly fresh air. I will say, putting it right between Chop Suey, which I feel is just such an angry, like almost cathartic release of anger at being judged and mistreated. The whole Father, into your hands I commend my spirit. The whole, like what Jesus said on the cross and all that. Mm-hmm. Going from that, and I cry when angels deserve to die.
Right. Talking
about how people judge you and think you should be hurt. And then immediately going into Bounce, it kills the vibe. For me, it goes from like, I'm like, oh. And then he's screaming about pogo sticks, and they put that song in The Secret Life of Pets, and
Did they?
They did.
No.
No, it's a straight up fact.
No.
It's on the Genius page, bro.
They did. No, they did not.
And then going back into Forest, like it's like I hit a speed bump.
Right.
It's like I'm coasting down the hill, and all of a sudden,
yeah, right.
I'm like, well, that wasn't terrible. I liked the song, but at the same time, I'm like,
right.
what? What was that?
What you were saying too about Chop Suey, the concept of how you lived your life being judged by the moments of your death, is like when he says when angels deserve to die.
Yeah.
That concept of, and how many times have you seen, or we just had it with Prince. The guy lives his life this long way, and now people are dissecting the fact that he OD'd on pills. And it's like, well, first, the little piece of me is like, well, first of all, he was on pills because he needed hip surgery and he was trying to keep performing. Right? Second of all, that's a very minor portion of an infinity of output. You know what I mean? And yet, and we do that with so many people. The way they die makes us pass judgment on
who they are as people.
Who they were, and it's, you know, it's crazy and irritating.
For me, I think this also ties back into Needles and Prison Song. Because how we view people who are addicted to drugs does make it when they die of an overdose, it's, oh man, that guy was a junkie. That's all we see of him. We reduce his entire existence down into one word,
right,
that is derogatory.
And then you see on the heels of somebody's death, we start digging in and trying to figure out what was wrong with that person due to the fact that we found out that Elvis,
yeah,
OD's sitting on the toilet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's like all I knew of Elvis for years.
Are you kidding? Right?
Yeah.
You know, this guy was it drives me crazy. And to your point, the fact that we belittle people who are dealing with issues, and also it strikes a larger point of how we belittle people who are also dealing with mental issues, because usually a mental issue or a form of self-medication, whether it be a physical issue or it be a mental issue, you're anxious all the time, so you start to do drugs, right? Because you can't afford the proper doctor, psychology way of figuring out how you should be, right?
Yeah, or the stigma around it dissuades you.
Or you were roughed up as a kid, which turns you into a person who winds up falling back on drugs to try to get through the day, because you can't help but think about something that happened to you in your childhood, and yet you overcome that and become a force in society, in spite of the fact that you were treated poorly, in spite of the fact that you were addicted to drugs, and yet we still judge you based on the last moment of your breath. It's so unfair.
It's so messed up.
I'm sorry.
And then we go from that theming and that song and that like hard hitting commentary
to the pogo stick.
To pogo stick, baby.
Which there is an up and down to it.
There's an up and down. And again, it's like, it's not even like, I would just put bounce on like in a different spot on the album. That's like that's what I would do.
I just don't know where you'd put it.
I almost don't know how else you would
after Jet Pilot.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking, but I also like, I don't know how else you would reset. Like, I feel like they put it there almost purposefully to reset from Chop Suey to Forest, because it is a gear shift, but they were just like, you know what, we're shifting gears a little bit after Chop Suey, just put bounce in.
Right.
That just it's a palate cleanser of just like someone throwing radioactive goop in your face.
Right.
Someone just like sticking your finger in an electric socket.
Completely.
We're gonna get a little more serious than what we were talking about. What amazes me about this album in one way, this came out 7 days, 1 week, one exact week
Crazy.
before 9/11.
Oh my god, yeah, and then like half the songs got taken off the radio.
Yeah, it's
I think I read somewhere like Aerials got taken off. No, maybe it was a different song, but
I think every song.
yeah, but like I don't imagine that any radio station was playing System of a Down songs.
For a little bit, right?
Yeah.
It just kills me that this stuff was happening, even like these problems. They were talking about these issues even before 9/11.
Well,
even if it was only 7 days.
Well, what's I guess the proper complicated term for it, what sucks is when a Marvin Gaye writes of what's going on, when Surge and these guys write toxicity. The fact that these albums are timeless because these issues remain timeless is troublesome to us, because the humanity doesn't seem to be able to progress past a certain point. There are pushes forward and there are steps back and pushes forward, but we never seem to be able to get to a point where an album like This Is Content isn't timeless. And that's which I guess will be forever, that issue.
Yeah.
At least in some corner of the world. Like one area of society may be able to address it, but
so we've already touched on how well it's aged. I think the only thing we got now is what we were going to rate it at 10. You guys know I'm going to rate this a 10.
Yes.
This is an easy 10 for me.
I will say 8 to 9, somewhere in there, perhaps leaning closer to a 9, depending on my mood.
Depending on how you feel on Bounce.
Depending on how I feel after Bounce and how I feel during the Charles Manson song.
Dude, you go after Bounce, but that breakdown.
No, yeah, that's the thing. It's like I have no problems with Bounce as a song. It's like it's I'm like completely the entire time I'm like, yeah.
Right. And then
But then I'm like back to like Forest, which I think is beautiful. It's just a speed bump. Not a bad thing. I just feel like I ran over something in the road.
I give it a strong 9. It's a very good record.
Yeah.
So what we've been listening to.
Ooh, I shall go first.
Okay.
Because I really want to give a shout out to Phoebe Bridgers' 2020 album Punisher. I had heard quite a bit about it, and I listened to it, and boy howdy, it's really freaking good. Just like the first handful of songs on it are incredible.
She writes excellent poems.
Dude, yes. Dude, the song about Kyoto where she's talking about like her deadbeat dad getting back in contact with her, beautiful. A lot of what she says, a lot of the emotion she conveys through the music and her tone of voice. In addition to the backing vocals, like the collaboration she did with it adds so much. It's not like a lot. Like during the first song, Garden Song, during the chorus, there's just a gentleman who's singing along with her in a really low register. Perfectly highlights the words. It's really, really good. Highly recommend Phoebe Bridgers, Punisher. And I've also been listening to the Hades soundtrack from the Hades game because it slaps ass. What have you been listening to, KP?
Should I go or should
Go
KP
ahead.
I weirdly enough, to end off 2020, I've been going after a lot of sad indie folk.
Yeah.
Like Bright Eyes, Death Cab for Cutie specifically, I Will Follow You Into the Dark. That's easily their most popular song. To me, their best song easily. Even Elliott Smith, even though I don't know if he counts as folk.
Adjacent, perhaps.
But just a bunch of sad stuff. Because I feel like that's the right way to end off 2020. Also, I will give a shout out to probably my song of the year for 2020, Mac Miller's Good News. It's so sad. I don't even, it leaves me speechless every time I listen to it. I actually listened to it when the clock turned midnight on 20, and then the day turned to 2021.
Yes.
It's just great in every way. I listened to it when it dropped and I just bawled.
So good.
I also that's pretty much it. Oh, I also listened to Acid Rap by Chance. What happened to you, Chance?
Dude,
What?
because I remember Acid Rap, I bopped that constantly because it's full of just bangers. Like Cocoa Butter Kisses, Everybody Somebody's Everything.
Cocoa Butter Kisses is, to me, Cocoa Butter Kisses is his best song.
It really is, and it does make me wonder because I try not to. But he had so much. He was so freaking good, and it did not come through with his recent albums. It wildly did not come through.
You could argue that those problems with Chance started on a coloring book.
Yeah.
Which I still kind of enjoy Coloring Book.
I like Coloring
even though
Book.
it's a little cheesy.
It's not as good as Acid Rap. I think Acid Rap is like easily the best thing he's done.
Oh, by far. It's a mixtape, EP, whatever you want to call it. That's pretty much it. Yeah. Dad, what have you been listening to? Or KP?
I listened to Chris Stapleton, Starting Over, a little country music. I listened to Letter to You, Springsteen. I listened to Neil Young has put out an Archives Volume 2 record I listened to a little bit. I listened to Rough and Rowdy by the young and upcoming artist Bob Dylan. Rough and Rowdy Ways. Ultra Mono, I listened to that a little bit from Idols. And I listened to KG by King Gizzard and the Lizard.
Yes.
Wizard.
I love King Gizzard.
Yes.
What did you think about KG?
I like it very much.
It's very good.
I like it very much.
It's good.
Which, and you were going to say something, I believe, also.
Okay. So, recently, something very sad has happened. The news has come that legendary rapper and artist MF Doom passed away on Halloween Day. The news just came out New Year's, I believe. All regards to his family, and I'm happy that they got a little time to mourn before they announced it. I've been down a while because of it. MF Doom, one of the best rappers just of all time, super influential.
We did a pod on him, not that long.
Yeah, and it's dead at 49.
That's terrible, man. It's terrible. There will never be another MF Doom. There will never be another person like MF Doom. Never on his level. Never with those rhyme schemes. Never.
And listen, all right, super underrated. When he murdered that beat on November Has Come.
Come on.
It's just November's Come, the Gorilla song he was on.
Yes.
Just remember, all caps when he spelled the man's name.
Yeah. I was waiting for one of y'all to slip up in the group chat and spell it with what's the opposite of capitals? Lowercase.
Lowercase.
With lowercase, and I was about to smoke one of y'all fools, but no, y'all are respectful. I was waiting for Nick to do it because Nick don't know. I was gonna blast him. I was ready to annihilate him in the group chat.
Yeah, he's a literature guy.
No, he said. Do you think Nick's ever heard an MF Doom song?
Nick has never heard an MF Doom song. I know that for a fact.
Right. All right. So is that a wrap?
Yeah, that is a wrap. Next week we are probably doing my top 10 albums of 2020.
I'm not allowed to do a top 10.
Yeah, I actually didn't know up until this moment that I was just like, we're just doing Ray's favorite stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
I will have lots to comment on, Ray. I will judge your top 10 harshly. Wait, you were saying for a while that you could not find a 10th.
I found a 10th.
Okay, perfect.
I'll judge it less harshly if I get to do one.
Well, do you want?
I'm a hater, so I'm doing harsh regardless.
So year in review episode next.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So
This was a good year for music. The only problem is that it was a very consistent good year for music, so it was really hard to pick a top 10 because everything was just kind of consistent.
Not a lot of like complete garbage.
No, Green Day album, and that's it.
Oh, that did come out this year. Or last year.
That came out the last year.
Go Home Meat Production, copyright 2021.
Go home.
Go home.